Christopher Columbus was born in Genoa, now part of modern-day Italy, in 1451. Wait, did I say Christopher Columbus? I meant Cristoforo Colombo. No, actually, Cristobal Colon. No, Cristoforo Colombo. What? Whatever the f that says. There's a lot of debate when it comes to this guy, but a couple of things at least are certain. He was a brave navigator who irrevocably altered the course of history, and he had a very gifted PR team, because he's famous for doing a whole bunch of shit he didn't actually do. Like being the first European to encounter the Americas. That was actually more than likely this guy. The main reason Columbus has more historical significance is that while Chris said, "I came, I saw, I conquered," Leif said, "I came, I saw, and I left everyone the f*** alone." Columbus was known for being a very skilled sailor, ironically, and was heavily influenced by Marco Polo's stories of his travels to the Far East. He too wanted to sail the vast uncharted waters and achieve power and glory and whatnot. Fueled by big dreams, lofty ambitions, and frankly not a whole lot of food because he ended up abjectly poor, he spent years researching and preparing for a grand voyage to the Indies. You see, back then, there was this race to find a better route to India and the Spice Islands because having to go all the way around Africa was understandably a right pain in the ass, and the land route was not a very feasible option. So he developed this idea for a new route to the Indies and spent years pitching this idea to the monarchs of Portugal, France, and England, neither of which wanted anything to do with him. But he didn't let that little hiccup discourage him, so he turned to the King and Queen of Spain. At first, they were skeptical. So, how exactly do you intend to reach the Far East? Go west? Works for me. So finally, after 2 years of back and forth, Ferdy and Izzy agreed to fund his voyage. They gave him the bare minimum, 3 ships and 90 men under the agreement that if he found any new places, he'll get 10% of all revenues along with the titles of governor and viceroy. Some people seem to think that Columbus set out to prove that the earth is round, which is actually crap because educated people at the time knew that the earth is round, so that wasn't up for debate. The problem was that he thought that the earth was smaller than it actually was, causing him to make a minor miscalculation of around several thousand miles. So he decided to go west, which, with enough supplies and patience, theoretically could have worked, save for the fact that someone decided to drop this pesky little continent in the middle of the Atlantic. And so Columbus set off on his first historic journey. After a brief stop at the Canary Islands, they sailed on for over a month. Columbus kept 2 logbooks. A secret one with the actual distance covered each day, and one with shorter distances for the express purpose of bullshitting his crew. Either way, the trip was taking much longer than anyone expected, and the crew started getting real pissy. On October 10th, Columbus said, "Listen, if we don't see any land in 2 days, we'll turn around. Promise." Miraculously, on October 12th, a crewmate by the name of Rodrigo caught a glimpse of sandy beaches in the distance. This was especially good news for Rodrigo because there just happened to be a reward of 10,000 maravedis for life to whoever spotted land first. But when Chris heard the news, he said, "No, actually, now that I think about it, I saw a little light last night in a distance, but I didn't think it was important or anything, so... well, technically, I guess that means I was the first to spot land. Sorry, buddy." So he took the reward for himself. Poor Rodrigo. Welcome to the Bahamas, otherwise known as not India, home of gentle naked people who are not Indians, with good bodies and handsome features willing to give you parrots and cotton and spears and friendship. And so he called the natives Indians, and he was off to a great start. He did some further exploring, stopping in what's now Cuba and the island called Hispaniola, which would later be called Haiti and the Dominican Republic, all the while thinking he had reached Asia. Columbus is quoted as saying, "For the execution of the voyage to the Indies, I did not make use of intelligence, mathematics, or maps." Yeah, no shit. So he left 39 men behind and returned to Spain that following January to persuade the Queen that the place could do with a real good colonizing. Impressed, she sends him back, this time with 17 ships, 1,200 men, livestock, and sugarcane plants. Meanwhile, the natives were getting sick and tired of the settlers' shit, and Columbus came back to find his settlement in ruins. On his second voyage, he bounced around and named several islands, including Montserrat, St. Kitts, St. Croix, and more. He landed in Puerto Rico for a bit, then a few days later landed in Jamaica, but the natives there weren't very welcoming. He then went to Cuba, and at some point wrote a letter to the Queen that said, "Hey, mind if I take some of these people as slaves? You know, it'd be cool if you didn't do that." Okay, sweet. So he took around 1,600 and enslaved them anyway. And that was just the beginning. To keep the settlers happy, Columbus established a system of encomienda, which gave every Spanish settler a piece of land. If that piece of land happened to have natives, then those natives had to work for them. No word on what the natives felt about that. They forced the natives to search for gold, and if they didn't meet a certain quota each month, they would get their hands chopped off. The treatment of the natives unsettled even some of the settlers. Word got out that Columbus was being a dick, so Spain decided to send out someone to investigate. By his third voyage, he decided to revise his faulty idea that the world was round and instead wrote, "I found it was not round, but pear-shaped. Round where it has a nipple, for there it is taller. Or as if one had a round ball and on one side it should be like a woman's breast, and this nipple part is the highest and closest to heaven." There you have it, folks. The earth is a titanic titty. Columbus was arrested by the Spanish monarchy and sent back to Spain for mismanagement of the colony and mistreatment of the Spanish settlers. He sat in jail for 6 months until he was released by the king. Well, you've proven yourself to be an absolute dick weasel, but I'm gonna give you one more chance. Just be glad I didn't arrest you for that stupid fucking hat. And so Columbus set off on his fourth and final journey to the Caribbean, but with a little less baggage this time, such as less men, less ships, and less title of governor. He was also no longer allowed back on the island of Hispaniola. He got wrecked on the shores of Jamaica, where he spent a year until he was finally rescued. He then spent the rest of his days bitching at the Spanish crown for not compensating him the way he thought he deserved, and lived crappily ever after. So that's Columbus in a nutshell. Although he didn't actually set foot on North America as many believe, he opened up European awareness of a new world, indirectly made Spain one of the wealthiest and most influential countries in the world, and started the Columbian Exchange. Whoops, and this is not actually the Indies, so let's call it the West Indies. Other than that, he was a terrible leader and didn't actually succeed at anything he attempted. And probably even by the standards of those days, he was a pretty terrible person. Or maybe I just have a personal vendetta against the man, because quite often when I mention having Indian ancestry, people ask me, what tribe? One thing for sure, Columbus certainly impacted the world in very interesting ways. My name is Sevy, and thank you for learning with me today. If you'd like to see more videos, go ahead and conquer that subscribe button and that bell for notifications. Sources are cited in the description below. Until next time.